everyone, and welcome to the SKOCH India Law Forum and LITFest 2022, organized under the aegis of the 82nd SKOCH Summit. Today, we're joined by Sri Sameer Kochar, author, reforms historian, and chairman of the SKOCH Group, and our panel of legal experts for our conference on legal framework for hydrogen economy. There is a global shift in favor of practices that enable us to get closer to net zero, and hydrogen has been identified as an environmentally friendly resource. The energy sector in India is primed for becoming a hydrogen economy, and today's panel will explore the potential of and challenges to the same, as well as discussing the existing regulatory framework governing the sector and potential policy changes that may empower it further. It's my pleasure to now introduce our panel of experts to all of you. First up, we have Mr. Jatinder Cheema, energy and climate change lawyer and public policy expert. Mr. Cheema has been with the Indian Bar for over 30 years and is also licensed to practice in Ontario and in the SADC region. With his experience in litigation and dispute resolution, Mr. Cheema advises project developers, investors, regulators, suppliers, and contractors on a diverse range of commercial and transactional matters in the utilities and infrastructure niche. He works regularly on regulatory and policy issues. We have with us Mr. Anand Kumar, former Secretary Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. He's a retired IAS officer of the 1984 batch of the Kerala cadre. He's also served as the Deputy Election Commissioner in the Election Commission of India between 2004 and 6, and later went on to serve as the Joint Secretary at the Ministry of Tourism and the Secretary at the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. We have Dr. Vibha Dhawan, Director General of the Energy and Resources Institute. Dr. Dhawan has been with TERI since 1985, working at the national and international levels in research and policy development. She's been instrumental to the establishment of the highly successful micropropagation technology park at TERI. She served on the board of prestigious organizations in India and overseas, including Jawaharlal Nehru University, Ambedkar University, Ayurveda Foundation, and the Center for Bioscience and Agriculture International. We have Mr. K.R. Jyothilal, Principal Secretary of the Transport Department of the Government of Kerala. He's a 1993 batch IAS officer and has previously served as Collector of Trivandrum and Kannur, and held portfolios in IT, transport, agriculture, animal husbandry, fisheries, food and civil supplies, tourism, parliamentary affairs, aviation, and more. He's been instrumental in projects related to high-tech agriculture, Smart City Kochi, KMRL, KMTA, Kannur Airport, e-mobility, and the hydrogen economy. We have Dr. Reji Mathai, Director, Automotive Research Association of India. He brings over 28 years of experience in the field of engine and vehicle testing, emission studies, and ambient air quality. He's the chairman of the AISC, responsible for the preparation and approval of automotive standards. He's been part of the Auto Fuel Vision and Policy 2025 Committee. He's a member of various government committees and bodies like BIS and CPCB, where he works on mobility concerns to facilitate for further future roadmaps. An avid researcher, Dr. Mathai also has 2 patents to his credit. We have Dr. R. Venugopal, who is the Joint Chief Controller of the Explosives, Petroleum, and Explosive Safety Organization, where he has completed 25 years this year. His expertise in the industry is backed by a BTech degree in chemical engineering, an MTech degree in chemical engineering, and a PhD in chemical engineering from Banasthali Vidyapeeth. I'll now invite Sameerji to share a few words and open today's panel. So,
thank you very much, Brinda. Very shortly, I think hydrogen is going to be incredibly important to India, both in terms of the new opportunities and the first mover advantages that it can probably open up for us. It is economically extremely important for us because we have to get energy-wise self-sufficient. We've all seen what is happening with oil, and the long-term security, economic security, as well as national security probably depends very largely on how fast we can move towards energy self-sufficiency. And I think hydrogen possibly is a way forward. The second very obvious reason for moving towards that is climate change, which is here and now. We are living in it. And that's going to, again, have a very profound impact. Today, we are looking at legal framework. I do not understand a legal framework of hydrogen very well, but I do know that whenever new innovative and disruptive technologies come up, it is very important to come up with the right legal framework and guidelines. Some of it can be very prickly, like I'm very deep into the framework for crypto. I'm sure hydrogen is nothing like that, and no one disagrees that it should be adopted. So at least that's half the battle won. With that, I would like to leave this panel to Cheema to conduct. Jay.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. A warm welcome to my esteemed co-panelists, Dr. Vibha Dhawan, Shri Anand Kumar, Shri K.R. Jyothilal, Dr. Reji Mathai, last but not the least, Dr. R. Venugopal. This event is bringing together luminaries and professionals for an engagement on a cutting-edge subject in the hydrogen space, impacting sector as a whole. Allow me to first set the agenda for our discussions this evening. There appears to be a paradigm shift in the energy sector in India. Though oil and gas would continue to remain the significant resource for the next 2 decades, hydrogen would dominate the years to follow. Hydrogen has fascinated generations of people for centuries, including visionary minds like Jules Verne. A hydrogen economy is projected as an ultimate solution for energy and environment. A rising star of new energies in hydrogen, it is said that it is environmentally friendly resource which produces only pure water and heat when combusted. Although hydrogen has been traditionally used as a feedstock in several industrial processes, such as ammonia synthesis and refining of crude oil, recent developments have shown that hydrogen can also be used for a number of applications, including electricity generation, transportation, storing energy from intermittent renewable resources. Hydrogen has long been termed as fuel of the future, but has till date never quite made it as a major player in the energy market. Hydrogen technologies have gone through several periods of hype over the last few decades, initially stimulated by the oil crisis in 1973. This is when countries all across the globe started exploring alternative sources of energy to reduce import. In the 2000s, hydrogen once again piqued the interest of the stakeholders. However, the high cost of hydrogen technologies, along with lack of sustained policy support, led to hydrogen being discounted, and on the basis of these failures, and what followed would be termed as a trough of disillusionment. Between rapid climate change and net zero pledge, the virtuous cycle of hydrogen deployment has once again started to gain momentum. And it appears that finally the potential of hydrogen will be reaped to accelerate the process of energy transition. Growing demand, supply-side innovation, enabling technological developments, and growing policy interest has accelerated the growth and development of hydrogen technologies. South Korea, Netherlands, European Union, China, and Japan are fast emerging as leaders in the hydrogen sector. A window of opportunity still remains for India to capture large parts of this market, using the advantage of large domestic market, competitiveness of green hydrogen, and policy support. In light of the same, it is pertinent that India develops a legal framework to exploit hydrogen. It is imperative to regulate the production, transportation, storage, use, and disposal of hydrogen, including fugitive emissions. In India, the commercial usage of hydrogen has just begun to traverse the road to a large-scale use. Currently, India regulates hydrogen use through policies, but legislations are required to fill in the loopholes created by these policies. South Korea, for example, has already codified a hydrogen statute while countries like China, Netherlands, and EU are stepping forward to create dedicated laws and regulations for hydrogen. Other countries like Saudi Arabia, the United States of America, and Japan are investing heavily in the R&D projects on hydrogen. R&D projects on hydrogen started early in India, but due to lackluster response in early adoption by industries, coupled with lack of effective implementation policies, we are still at the nascent level compared to some of the other countries. India and Germany, as you know, have just signed a joint declaration of intent on the Indo-German Hydrogen Gas Task Force. The Ministry of New and Renewable Energy revealed that the joint proclamation was signed virtually by the Union Minister of Power and the New and Renewable Energy and German Minister of Economic Affairs and Climate Change. Both countries are dedicated to establishing a national green hydrogen economy. A long-term objective is to minimize emissions while protecting ecosystem. The corporate houses as well are stepping forward to contribute decarbonization drive and to lower their carbon footprints. Recently, ArcelorMittal announced that it has successfully tested the use of green hydrogen in production of direct reduced iron at its steel plant at Contrecoeur, Quebec, Canada. The objective of the test was to assess the ability to replace the use of natural gas with green hydrogen in the iron ore reduction process. During this test, 6.8% of natural gas was replaced with green hydrogen during a 24-hour period, which contributed to a measurable reduction in CO2 emission. The green hydrogen used in the test was produced by a third-party owned electrolyzer, a device that produces green hydrogen from electricity and water, and was then transported to Contrecoeur. This is a major step forward since the iron ore reduction process alone contributes to more than 75% of ArcelorMittal Long Products Canada's overall CO2 emissions. Maharashtra headquartered component supplier Advik High-Tech has formed a new joint venture with Australian clean energy company Pure Hydrogen Corporation. Pure Hydrogen to establish hydrogen production facility in India. This 51-49 joint venture will see Advik holding majority share while remaining stake will be held by Pure Hydrogen. The new entity aims to sell, transport and distribute hydrogen across India. The company will also be in a position to supply HFC EV buses and trucks, which could put India at the forefront of hydrogen production, sale and distribution globally. Numerous research think tanks across the globe, based on their studies, have proposed the following. Firstly, the exploration of leakage mechanism for CCUS-enabled hydrogen and process industry. This would involve investigating if there are any credible scenarios where hydrogen may be vented rather than flared. The residual amount of unburnt hydrogen in exhaust after flaring and leakage of hydrogen across from pipework, storage, and compressors. Secondly, identification of technologies that could be incorporated into electrolyzers and fuel cells to recombine hydrogen that is currently purged and vented into water. Assess the effectiveness of these technologies and how they affect the levelized cost, allowing for greater capital and maintenance cost. And thirdly, undertaking of monitoring studies to improve the prediction of natural gas leakage. Thus, the panel discussion will focus on potential of hydrogen, the early mover advantage in this sphere, and critically analyze the issues, the policy framework, and the areas pertinent for devising a comprehensive legal framework for regulation of hydrogen economy, identifying the potential nature of disputes in the hydrogen sector, and over the next 80 minutes, we will espouse panel's expert views from their experiential learning. This panel will be conducted in 2 rounds. In the first round, I will be inviting each of the panelists to make their opening comment, remark, or a statement. And in the second round, I would like to invite the panelists to answer certain questions in turn. Maybe now start with Dr. Vibha Dhawan to make her opening remarks. Ma'am, you'll have to unmute. Ma'am, you need to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
So thanks for such an elaborate presentation on hydrogen as a whole. In fact, you have practically covered everything what we are talking about hydrogen. The only thing I would like to say is that you rightly mentioned we are talking of hydrogen for, I should say, over 5 decades now. But then it hasn't become a reality till now. The reason for that are many. And I'll say the most important reason is that now there are two things. One is that we have recognized that energy security is as important as national security and food security of a country. And this war which is happening now between Ukraine and USSR is a clear example how you can disturb the entire globe because of the energy issues. Second is pricing. And third, the most important one is that we have recognized that we cannot afford the way climate change is. And therefore, going for net zero is a necessity. We don't have time. We immediately have to shift. And therefore, the earlier last 5 decades, when we kept on debating how expensive hydrogen is, now it is that we really need to have an energy supply from a source such as hydrogen, which remains uninterrupted, which can be done at a decentralized manner and so on. So therefore, I'll say that both research investments and financial investments in this area are going to go up, and that will make sure that hydrogen becomes a reality. So that's all what I'd like to say in the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dhawan. We have on our panel Mr. Anand Kumar, IAS, who has been a former secretary of MNRE and has played a pivotal role. So, sir, your comments, your opening comments.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cheema, for giving this opportunity to be part of this important discussion. We in the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy started working on hydrogen mission somewhere in the late 2018. And then we had series of meetings and in 2019-20 and on 15th August 2021, as we all are aware, Honorable Prime Minister launched National Green Hydrogen Mission with very focused objectives. One, to decarbonize major sectors of economy. Two, to enhance India's energy independence. And this becomes very important in today's world, as Dr. Vibha has mentioned. Number three, to make India a global hub for production and exports. This is when I talk about the production of electrolyzers and related equipment. Fourth, to become inspiration for global clean energy transition. So he has positioned India very well, that India has to become a leader and India has to inspire the others, inspire others in global clean energy transition. And lastly, obviously, to create enough and more employment opportunities. Now, how do we do that? And how this National Green Hydrogen Mission is going to work? Our initial thoughts were that first we should look at demand creation. Now, how the demand creation is done? First, we make assessment of the economy of various sectors. Then, how to meet that demand of energy, first in part with hydrogen, and then completely with hydrogen. then how do we scale it up? Then, if we are scaling it up, how do we start with hydrogen? Do we bring in green hydrogen consumption obligation, as we have in the renewable energy sector for the solar and non-solar parts? So this green hydrogen consumption obligation also has to come in to kick in the initial demand in various sectors of economy, like fertilizers, petroleum, steel, and city gas distribution, etc. Now, what could be the strategic interventions which the government can make? They can be both financial and non-financial. We can have incentives for the exports of the electrolyzers. We can have the tax structures for the imports of the raw material which is required for constructing the electrolyzers, with the aim that we must bring down the cost of green hydrogen. And we also must bring down the cost of manufacturing of electrolyzers and the related equipment. And at the same time, we must enhance exports from India. And that's only if this happens, India would become a global hub for manufacturing of green hydrogen, for exporting of the green hydrogen, and also exporting the equipment, including the electrolyzers and other equipment for the green hydrogen making. Now, for that purpose, initially we have created demand. We have strategic interventions, which will be short-term, mid-term, long-term. That won't be enough. We have to start with certain initial projects. So which I would call, there has to be an intervention by way of project implementation. And this could be by identifying certain sectors, certain projects in the area of shipping, in the area of steel manufacturing, in the area of creating green ammonia, in the area of creating green methanol, in the area of hydrogen storage, and of course, the long-range transportation by way of trucks and the trains. So this is where the major demand would come in, and this is where hydrogen can replace the other sources of energy majorly. When we talk about hydrogen, we should not only talk about hydrogen in isolation, that green hydrogen is there and then we would be making green hydrogen by using the renewable energy and it will solve all our problems. No. The whole thing had to be seen in totality. Green hydrogen is produced. Where is the demand? Where we are going to manufacture? Are we linking the demand hubs with manufacturing hubs? And if there could be, we are meeting the demand of the hubs locally, but there are certain ways, or there could be certain propositions where the demand has to be met from outside. Now, if we are not meeting from outside, how we are going to create pipelines? How we are going to create tankers which can have different bar pressures? How we are going to do the site storage? How we are going to facilitate transportation? And how we are going to create economies of scale? So we have created demand, we have strategic interventions, we have identified the projects, and then we are creating the infrastructure for transportation of hydrogen as such. Though the hydrogen, the green hydrogen, would cost less in the years to come when the cost of electrolyzers would go down. But the cost of creating infrastructure would remain. And mind it, when we are talking about green hydrogen, it is intermittent. Green hydrogen will not be produced at the same rate all through the day. So you will have to have hydrogen storage to make it round-the-clock supply for green hydrogen. If you talk about the grey hydrogen, there is no independence. But when you talk about the green hydrogen, if you are taking from the source, Unless you have a backup of the storage, you will not be able to use it as it should be. You have touched a very important point of regulation and standards. We must not reinvent the wheels. We must not reinvent the wheel because other countries have already moved ahead and made certain standards, and they have followed the standards. So our standards should be global. We should follow global standards. We should have interoperability of technology and of the equipment. Now, we would require regulation standards for what kind of storage is there, what kind of pipelines we are going to lay, what kind of technologies we are going to use, what kind of electrolyzers we are going to have. So this will not only involve legislation, this will involve rules, this will involve regulations, schemes, policies, and they cannot be written in stone once. As we grow, as we have experience in the field of green hydrogen, they may require changes, they may require amendments, and we should be ready for it. We should be ready for the mid-course correction. R&D. We must now, from the word go, we had started research in hydrogen, but somewhere we lost the pace. India lost a golden opportunity in solar energy industry. In 2014-15, if we would have started manufacturing the solar cells, we would have been leaders by now. We should not lose opportunity today on the green hydrogen. We have a golden opportunity. We have technological manpower. We have got international relations to go by. Everything is positive for India. And we must encash on it. And take it from me, not today, but tomorrow, hydrogen is going to play a key role in meeting the energy demand of our country and internationally as well as other countries. By 2030, if we see, I was working in the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, we should have production capabilities of around 4 million metric tons. And this can grow up as the export rises. So we should not again say that, look, this is the only production I would do. Because if everything goes right, if the prices of the green renewable energies go down, if we have prices of electrolyzers going down, then why not we scale up our targets of hydrogen? This would, if you're talking about green hydrogen, it would require additional capacity of renewable energy. So to facilitate production of green energy, we must facilitate production of renewable energy. And we should also revise our target upwards. And that can happen when we provide land for the renewable energy projects, when we give the clearances for the renewable energy projects in time, and we also keep the check on the demand of the I'm saying the demand of solar cells, etc., but we must meet the demand of solar cells and modules from within the country at a cheaper price. As I said that we must now start working, identify the key core sectors for hydrogen. We must work out what their demand would be. We must now work out initially year-wise, short-term, what will the requirement, hydrogen, green hydrogen, what will the mid-term, what will the long-term, how we are going to meet those demands locally or through either through the local hubs of manufacturing or from the distant hubs of manufacturing. And then if we are able to do so, take it from me, we are going to have many million full-time jobs for the Indians in the country. And today, if you see that greenhouse emissions in the power sector, we are responsible for around 40% of greenhouse emissions. And if you see industries and transportation sector, we are responsible for 38%. And with green hydrogen coming in, we would be able to reduce and avoid maybe around a significant million metric tons of carbon dioxide. So these are my initial remarks, Cheema. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. Kerala has done pioneering work in the hydrogen economy space. May I now invite Principal Secretary Transport, Mr. K.R. Jyothilal, to make his initial comments.
Respected Vibha, Dhawan Madam, Anand Kumar Sir, Cheema ji, Sri Kocha ji, and fellow panelists. In fact, thanks for an opportunity to share some of the thoughts. In fact, Kerala, we announced that Kerala will be the first probably state to become carbon neutral by 2050. In fact, most of our local bodies started announcing by 2035. So they are working on it. There is a competition between the local bodies to make it who will be the first one to achieve carbon neutrality. So we need to address the problems of agriculture, waste management, energy, industry, transport, and all these sectors. So in fact, there are roadmap have been made for carbon neutrality by 2050. So we brought the first EV policy around 2019. So that's the time at which we put two electric vehicles, 1 million electric vehicles by 2025. Then we found that, for the buses, trucks, and maybe the boats, the electric vehicle, the charging, the battery as a storage may not be the ideal. So it is better to go for fuel cell. That is where we came to the hydrogen. Hydrogen as an alternative so that the battery can be replaced as far as the bus, trucks, and maybe heavy duty vehicles are concerned. So we first pilot project, we did the scanning of all the legislation in the country. I should thank Sri Jatinder Cheema for bringing out. We found that there are 64 clauses, sections, or the rules which needs to be amended if you have to bring hydrogen to. So I am not getting into the details, probably 60. So all those legislations, rules, and sections which need to be amended in the country to make hydrogen as a fuel has been identified. This has been shared with the MNRE Secretary and the concerned secretaries in the Government of India. We brought the first pilot project in July 2020. We got the sanction from the MNRE. That is to run two cars, that is Mirai, Toyota Mirai, and 2 buses between Trivandrum and Kochi as a hydrogen highway. So, but then we found, we are learning from when you start something, you learn from mistakes, or you need to put everything, everything in place so that legal framework is in place. So pilot, we got the sanction, but then we found the hydrogen availability is the next issue. I think now Toyota has brought the brand to Mirai, which is brand new second generation. In fact, first Mirai is registered in the country is also in Kerala only. So now buses we are looking now, Tatas have brought, but I think lot KPIT is also developed indigenously fuel cell. So we are working on it. We prepared a roadmap for the state. So in a 3-phased manner, we will start with within the city. That is, so the Kochi Metro has now called a tender for 10 buses, hydrogen fuel cell buses as a feeder bus for the metro, so that it will be plying between the airport and the metro, as well as maybe central business district connecting the metro stations. So tender is being finalized. I think probably this week or so they will be able to finalize. We found that there are 2 important aspects of it. One is the cost of hydrogen and need to be brought down, as Sarah's mentioned, and Kumar Sarah's mentioned. It may be roughly around 400, 415. We need to bring it down to 150 or so to break even with the the diesel. Then second is the fuel cell cost is high, so we are going for a wet lease model. In fact, the roadmap has been prepared with the funding of GIZ, so that we will scale it up to 50 buses in the next phase, which will run between the cities. So start with the intra-city, then we'll go for intercity buses. Then we prepared what is as per the roadmap, we have got a potential of around 9 gigawatt. And our requirement, as per our EV policy, 3,000 buses and 1,000 trucks are to be electrified in the sense. So naturally the fuel cell, the requirement of hydrogen comes to roughly around 25,000 tons in a year. Then we have got a 140 tons requirement in the refinery. So out of which, if 25%, maybe 30 tons per day might be the requirement of a green hydrogen as per the Niti Aayog direction. So if we take 140 tons, roughly around 75,000 tons will be required. Our potential is to generate 1 lakh tons in Kerala. So out of which maybe remaining 25,000 can be used for export. So that is the way we are going. Now, one good news is that we are looking at options with limited capex, so how we can convert HICE engines, which is already, I think Ashok Leyland and Reliance are all working on it. Now it is ready. I think the model is ready in, I think, Huzur. So the pilot testing is going on. If that comes, we can retrofit the existing buses so that with the minimum capex, we can convert. So that is a major breakthrough. Parallelly, we are working on the water transport sector. In fact, with the German funding, we have done with we have done a water metro where the LTO battery is used. Now we are trying, Cochin Shipyard is trying with the funding from the Ministry of Shipping, how to make that replace the LTO battery with the fuel cell. So that will be first probably boat in the country which is going to be run on the fuel cell. Now in fact, we have requested TERI to prepare a DPR for the entire waterway, because next 6 months our national waterway is going to get commissioned. So across the state, from right from Kovalam up to Kasaragod, we can run the ferries using the fuel cell boats. So that is the second project which we are working. Similarly, we are working on the hydrogen ports as a PRT, then sustainable aviation fuel to replace the kerosene in the boats, as well as for the aviation sector, then biomass and plastic and agriculture waste into and one more, last but not the least, is if you talk about export or the reduced cost of storage as well as transportation, liquid hydrogen. In fact, last week only we had the discussion on how to use the technology for liquefying the hydrogen using the cold energy of LNG, which is available in Kochi, so that the cost of storage and can be reduced. In fact, for mobility and export, that's ideal. But then there are certain legal provisions which I'll come to later, when you need to have you need to approval for the carbon steel with double this thing with the vacuum in between. So those need to be permitted. In fact, then there are some issues with the PESO, like you need to approve up to 700 bar. Now only up to 300 bar it has been allowed. Probably that I will cover in the next session. So this in nutshell is our way till now, or maybe till now, our roadmap till now. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jyothilal. May I now invite Dr. Mathai to make his initial comments.
Yeah, thank you for this platform and for the esteemed panelists and for the great remarks. I just want to take back one step behind, and let us just was thinking about when we normally think about this energy scenario, the drivers are very clear about it, as was enumerated by my previous speakers. The air quality has been the primary one. So how the fuel or the energy system has been evolving. The legislation has been the key driver that has been bringing in better fuel or moving towards a low carbon intensive fuel. So this has been the key driver, I can say, that has enabled or has been leading us towards this hydrogen energy application. The energy security is very much in mind because we have to have that in place. And then when it comes to the mobility sector, because somehow whenever we think about the energy, one of the primary thoughts that comes is the automobile and its application, because the major chunk goes into it. And it can be one area where the government believes, or we all think, that can be easily substituted and the results can be seen much effectively. But then a bigger holistic picture needs to be brought into that. So when we look into the mobility aspect, the durability, the pricing, both are very critical when they have to be deployed. So these are some of the broad area contours on which we think about a fuel or an energy that has to be put into place. If you look into our current consumption pattern of the energy for this automotive sector, the fossil fuel really means the liquid fuels, the diesel and the gasoline. They are the major users, almost covering around 80% of what is being consumed as of now, 80 to 85%. So when we speak about displacing it with hydrogen or looking into something a little more having a low carbon intensity, the will is very much there. But what has to be seen much beyond is the real steps to be taken. And this has been, what I can say, have been a very slow evolution that has been happening. We are not seeing a massive steps being taken for that deployment. The enablers, one of the learning curve that we have seen is of the EV introduction. The only differentiating factor between the two is that the EV introduction has not been so capital intensive or the infrastructure dependent, while the hydrogen requirement or the way it has to be brought into picture is highly capital intensive and going to be a lot of infrastructure needs are to be put into place. So these are one of the major things, but what is helping is the slow demonstration projects or the pilot projects that are coming into play. The states like Kerala, Gujarat, many of them have really focused and are start working on it in a very systematic manner, while others are still on a very slow thinking about what next is to be done. Government support is one of the key enabler, I believe. The EV, they have brought in the PLI scheme, the FAME scheme for the automotive sector in a big way. They have also included the fuel cell in the productivity linked incentive scheme. So there is a scope over there for the fuel cell application. And we have to wait and watch how many of the companies apply and take benefit of it and really bring into production what is needed. So looking ahead, what we need is a more focused approach and a more clarity in the deployment of hydrogen related projects, particularly if we can dedicate certain corridors to start with, saying that certain main, like say Cochin, Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi, a complete route sort of a thing. Having the needed hydrogen infrastructure will be an enabler for greater projects in the mobility sector to come into play much faster. Our vision is very clear. The roadmap laid down by the Honorable Prime Minister was very clear that by 2070, we have to be carbon neutral. Hydrogen plays a very key role in that. The only thing, if we see about experiences, there have been great experiences by many companies. Recently, Indian Oil had been doing a lot of trials, one with the hydrogen blended CNG in Delhi itself, and showed the benefits out of it. But pure hydrogen application, again, there are pilot projects being done by GAIL for, it is in pipeline now between Delhi and Leh Ladakh. Indian Oil is going to plan again to fly around 15 buses in the NCR region, where Tata Motors is engaged with them. So there is a continued effort, spurts in this, what is happening, but a major effort or the major focus needs to come into play. Coming to the regulatory aspect means, as we think about the regulation as such, the fuel has been notified, so there is no, means there is nothing stops from the fuel, hydrogen as a fuel being used. Its specification, the BIS has brought out, so what fuel is to be used for the vehicles or the ICA or the fuel cell application, it is in place. There is the safety requirement is also in place to the automotive industry standard, the AIS 157. Whatever are the safety procedures for type approval of fuel cells are in place. There is a need for retrofitment permissions that we are working on as of now, because currently the retrofitment specification is not notified. There is, the panel is discussing on it and how it has to be done. So each of this, like the AIS 57, covers multiple standards. It's not that it is one document sort of a thing. It looks into not from the production side of hydrogen, that is another area that has to be looked into. But when we look into the mobility aspects, the fueling, its storage, the performance, safety, and operational requirements, these are completely covered. So there is a standard for what receptacle has to be used, what type of storage has to be used or is permitted. There are options given. So like Mr. Jyothilal was mentioning, Are we looking into the cryogenic cylinders, or are we looking into the type 3 or the type 4 cylinders? So this have to evolve in the time as we try more and some more of the pilot. The faster we learn, the better we can result into efficient system to be put into place. So basically, what I can say in my initial remarks is, we have done few projects or few aspects where we have learned or we have felt what is the need, how it has to be executed. But a more focused approach and a bigger thrust and a bigger dedicated means bigger, clearer pictures of corridors and demonstration projects on a nationwide scale rather than on a statewide scale will really put hydrogen into a better implementation roadmap, and we can see much better results in the coming days. That's my initial remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mathai. I'm going to invite Dr. Venugopal, an important cog in the wheel. The organization that he's part of is an important organization in terms of standards, specifications, and others. May I now invite Dr. Venugopal to make his initial comments. Okay, you'll have to unmute yourself. Dr. Venugopal, please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Good evening to all, esteemed panelists. The whole world is struggling to reduce the carbon emission and to save the environment from rising temperature as well as depletion of iceberg. The natural sources of coal, crude, etc. are limited in stock and may exhaust in the years to come. Every country in the world is committed to reduce the carbon emissions. The alternate sources such as solar or wind and hydropower plants, what all depends on the nature and its special environment clearance. So here, it is the best to have hydrogen gas, which has a very good calorific value. Many industries are working on it. Many universities are working on it to extract hydrogen, which is available plenty in atmosphere. The hydrogen, which is having a good calorific value generated by electrolysis methods, are stored in pressure vessels and used in various things. Here comes PESO. PESO is a Petroleum and Explosive Safety Organization, a 123-year-old organization of the Government of India. We are regulating pressure vessels, compressed gases, cross-country pipeline, petroleum products, etc. So this projects comes to us for approval and further licensing. As you know, in Gujarat itself, there are 911 CNG stations. This is the greatest in the country, the largest number of CNG stations. So now next is going to be the hydrogen. We have granted around 14 LNG stations in Gujarat. So next phase is coming to be is the how to regulate, how to maintain the safety in this hydrogen. Safety is seen as a paramount concern by many relevant bodies in relation to the regulation of Indian hydrogen industry. While they do not expressly refer to hydrogen, existing safety standards and regulation are arguably broad enough to capture most aspects of the hydrogen industry. Nevertheless, I would say it would be prudent to adopt standards and regulations specifically dealing with hydrogen to ensure that all aspects of hydrogen industry are dealt with. In India now, hydrogen safety is regulated by the Explosive Act. In that one, the gas cylinder rules 2016 and static mobile pressure vessels rules 2016 plays an important part. That any compressed gas has to be regulated under the gas cylinder rules. And the cylinder, which is having a volume exceeding 500 ml, but not exceeding 1000 liters, will come under the gas cylinder. And exceeding 1000 liters will come under the purview of the pressure vessels. So hydrogen vessels requires a license under the SMPP, static and mobile pressure vessel rules, and transportation of compressed gas also requires that is already given hydrogen. So many hydrogen tankers are running in the country. They were licensed under LS2 of the SMPV rules already. So now the discussions we are having, Ajay Kumar sir, Anand Kumar sir was talking about the storage. This is the very critical point. The most challenging part in this process is storage of hydrogen, as hydrogen is a very low density gas and must be stored in high pressures ranging from 350 bar to 700 bar to get required quantity and mileage of vehicles. Storing it in steel tank was not viable, as the weight of the steel tank of such high pressures will go very high, bringing down the total transportation economy. The development here, I would like to tell Anand Kumar sir and all the esteemed panelists, the development of Type 4 composite cylinders, which are very light in weight and safe compared to steel cylinders, made it possible to use hydrogen as a fuel in the vehicles, which is future for the auto industry. As you know, we have already granted permissions for Type 3 aluminum line manufactured by LITFest Cylinders USA, UK, and Type 4 all composite cylinders manufactured by Hexagon, Experian Germany, and HDT Fuel Solutions for the CNG's applications. So this we can consider the development of high pressure, which are very light in the weight and safe to convert to steel cylinders, made it possible to use as hydrogen as a fuel in the vehicles, which is the future of the auto industry. I am telling the storage of hydrogen is different in different types of vehicles, is at different pressures. For passenger vehicles, the size of the cylinders which we got applications is between 40 to 120 liter water capacity at a pressure rating of 500 to 700 bars. One passenger car can store around 5 to 6 kgs of hydrogen, depending on the pressure, and typically it can travel around 600 to 650 kilometers in one filling. The development of Type 4 high pressure composite cylinders, which are very light in weight and safe compared to steel cylinders, made it possible to use hydrogen as a fuel in the vehicle, which is the future of auto industry. I would like to tell that already the applications are coming. The transport vehicles needs more gas to be stored as consumption is more. Are using number of cylinders of water capacity between 150 to 350 liters and can store up to 16 to 20 kilograms of hydrogen, which can travel approximately 500 kg in one filling. The pressure of hydrogen is 350 kg. Now, coming into the European standards, which we are adopting here, the composite cylinders are designed by the European standard of ECR 79, ECER 134, and ISO standard of 19881. So the vehicle can be filled at the dispensing unit in similar fashion as CNG is filled presently. So the first is, I would like to have, I will tell you that the first hydrogen dispensing station will be inaugurated within 2 months. Already the first inspection has been conducted by me and my team at Gujarat refinery of IOC. We have some 35 suggestions we have made. So that will be, they will be complying with that. We will be forwarding this report to the Nagpur, our head office, and the license will be granted on that. The first license, hopefully within 2 months, the hydrogen first dispensing station will be opened in Vadodara, along with the refinery, which is associated with the refinery. So we were requesting all the cylinder manufacturers in the country for the working for Type 4 composite cylinders to come up with new manufacturing approvals. So already 4 composite cylinders for hydrogen are being manufactured at Hexagon, Quantum, and Lilian. These companies are marketing all over the world. So in India, we are thinking that only one company is manufacturing. It is called Time Technoplast. It is in the advanced stage of development of Type 4 composite cylinders for automobiles, and 4 cascade transportation to dispensing station. The cylinder, which is designed under ECAR 124 and EN 1225, having a working pressure of the cylinders will be 700 bar for automobile and 350 bar for the cascades. So these works are going on. I'm sure that in the coming days, there will be a great input for hydrogen dispensing stations. And with regard to storages, already PESO has granted several hydrogen pressure vessels, which is being run with the industries. Once these mother stations for hydrogen dispensing will come, PESO will surely give the licenses for that too. But there is a requirement of amendment of license in the gas cylinder rules, and especially in the gas cylinder rules for license of hydrogen dispensing station. Now, coming into these already the research work done by IOCs of great quality, and we have a lot of discussions between 3 to 4 days continuous discussions we were having on this hydrogen dispensing facility. All are coming up very well. So in the coming days, I'm sure that there will be a large number of hydrogen dispensing stations and CNG dispensing stations will come down in the coming days. And pipeline transportation also, as per the MSIC rules, PESO is the regulatory authority for that. If a major company is putting up hydrogen station, hydrogen bulk storage, then the pipeline also can be thought out. So this is the opening remarks from my side. Thank you. You are mute.
Just elaborate in terms of how many hydrogen dispensing stations are being planned over the next sort of 1 year or 2 years, and what are the safety precautions and measures that PESO is recommending for both storage as well as dispensing of hydrogen?
Can I share a PowerPoint?
Sure.
Are you able to see?
Yes, we are able to.
So, PESO has already given approval for IOC Gujarat Refinery for hydrogen dispensing station at their Gujarat Refinery premises. PESO has already conceptual agreement has been given for hydrogen generation and filling in cylinders, cascades, and dispensing attached with the IOCL refinery. PESO has granted license to import 6 gas cylinders for high pressure cylinder storages. So these will be used in the this dispensing station. I will show you the picture of the dispensing station. This is the IOCL hydrogen purification and dispensing facility at Gujarat. So you can see it is coming under around 3 acres of land, and they have laid out the layout of the thing is consisting of a compressor. This is the dispensing flow diagram. The purified hydrogen will be coming to the compressor, then operating pressure of 500 to 500 bar. Then it will go to a pressure reducing station, and it will be filled in trailers, in trailers with cascades of hydrogen and supplied to various dispensing units. Second line, you can see that the hydrogen is compressed to 500 bar and then going to the high pressure storage tubes, which is also of 500 bar, then going to a dispensing station, a dispensing pump, which will be chilled using a chilling system. So this is the way this hydrogen will be filled in buses they are planning dispensing capacity of 75 buses per day, 1.5 ton hydrogen per day. Each bus is having a filling capacity of 20 kg. Initial hours of operation, there were 25 buses can be filled in 8 hours. This is what they were planning to do. So this is the critical, this is the PSA system which they are having in their refinery. There they produce 99.99% purity hydrogen. This will be used in the buses and cars in the automotives. Here is this is the critical equipment compressor. This has been supplied from Sunday in USA. This is pure hydrogen from Gujarat refinery shall be routed to the high pressure compressors. It will be coming through a buffer vessel. And at compressor section, hydrogen shall be compressed from 20 kg per centimeter to 550 kg in 2 stages. The buffer vessel has been provided to avoid cavitation in the compressor. So safety, we have looked into it. And there are 2 compressors which has come up there. Then there is a dispenser, a chiller for cool the hydrogen. And as you know, the hydrogen is very dangerous and lighter than air. And so it will be settling in the top only. So we have directed gas detectors totally at the top, but there was one mistake. They have a fully roofing was full. So we have told them to take off the roofing to a certain extent only, so that they will be coming up in the coming days. So hopefully, I'm sure that in the coming 1 month, IOC's first dispensing station, 1 or 2 months in Gujarat. Second thing is, we have already granted approval for IOC itself in Faridabad, as well as for their University of Petroleum and Energy Studies for hydrogen dispensing station at Gurgaon and at Tata Motors. So what happens is the relevant data are not yet received. Performance of cylinders, valves, and pressure vessels has to be verified. Then only the next step of regulation comes into. So we are trying our best to codify this one, and then this those who have been given will give their performance evaluation report. After that, only the licensing procedure can be started. Till then, trial run permissions will be given for all these dispensing stations and hydrogen storage locations. Once this data, the relevant data of performance for the last 2 years, as well as for the new dispensing, at least 6 months, data are needed. Then that can be put into rules and regulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Venugopal. So one of the sort of issues that I sort of often read about is the financing, the climate financing for these kind of projects in hydrogen space. So I would like Dr. Dhawan, Mr. Jyothilal, and Mr. Anand Kumar to comment on this. How are green funds available for something like this, for a project like these?
Yeah, if I can get started, I'll say we talk a lot about the carbon financing, and especially in COP, there are more commitment made time and again, but they are never fulfilled. And we are still not realizing as citizens of this planet that whatever we do at one place, it is going to have impact internationally. So therefore, it is very important for the developed world to ensure that the developing economies keep pace with latest technologies. It is not just IP, that there is a company which sells the technology or have JV with another company in India, because then what is going to happen is that the benefits of new technologies will get limited to large corporates. And we are a country where there are large number of small and medium enterprises. So one is that carbon financing, it has to be done. I'm not saying that people should do charity, but definitely CapEx should be taken care of, and the benefits of the technology that can be repaid as soft loans. So one is not asking for charity, but simply that you are able to keep pace with. The other point which we haven't touched upon, and that is developing the technology and the human resource. Because I won't say that it's that Indian scientists, they are lagging behind. They are the best, and they can contribute in terms of developing this technology and commercializing this technology, especially to the needs of our country. And over there, I'll say it is technology and as well as absorption of the technology. So hydrogen is comparatively new. So all those who have studied engineering, maybe hydrogen was taught to them for few classes, few credits, that's all. But then once we adopt this, so whether it is, and it's the entire chain, it is not just production as rightly mentioned, it is its storage. So what kind of tanks, what kind of material, what kind of paint, its transportation. We have temperatures varying anywhere from minus to plus 50 degrees. So what all is going to happen? And there are going to be teething problems as well. A technology will fail if you tell someone that, okay, here is a problem. It will take us a couple of weeks to get it repaired. That's the end of adoption of that technology. People are going to say it doesn't work. And really speaking, that is what has happened in the past with solar energy to some extent, because there were no one to repair it. And when we moved to the next phase, it was that we need to have solar mitras, train them, train linemen, train at different levels so that you have the human resource. So what one is also suggesting is that we should have a sort of center of excellence, which takes care everything about the technology. We also need money in a way also from the government. See, when they have put in the last budget, there is quite a bit of money, about $2.6 billion to boost manufacturing of solar modules under the government's flagship production linked incentive scheme. There is nothing of that nature for hydrogen. So that is also needed. And so it is also from GOI. And this center of excellence, it should train manpower at different stages. It should have, I should say, the lineman, the person who will be dispensing hydrogen for whether it is being used for steel industry or cement industry, what level of purity will actually be required. How do you tackle other wastes which are generated? How do you even apply for carbon credits? Because it's a cleaner technology. So even if it's expensive, through carbon credits, you can fund this initiative. And thereafter, it is that, as I said, that technology also, it's a price sensitive market. So therefore, you also need manpower, or maybe doctoral and postdoctoral students who keeps on working on various aspects of hydrogen, so that the pricing comes down, it becomes more user-friendly and so on. So we also suggest there should be a center of excellence on hydrogen production with the major focus on R&D, but also training manpower to adopt the technology. So then only we will succeed. Mr. Cheema?
Thank you, Dr. Dhawan. I think you raise a very critical point of HR training and technical training, because it's the last man who is now sort of dispensing highly explosive fuel over to a potential vendor. In that situation, I think you make a very, very important point there. Can I ask Mr. Anand Kumar to comment on the climate finance, on hydrogen financing of storage, not only the production. See, so far what we have read is about production. What about the cost of storage, compression, transportation, restorage and dispensation? I think those are all other areas which would also critically need financing. So if your comments on that, thank you. Please unmute. Kindly unmute yourself. Mr. Anand Kumar.
Thank you, Mr. Cheema. when we talk about reducing the carbon footprints in the developing world, it becomes a responsibility of the developed world also to assist the developing world to reduce the carbon footprint and transfer of technology, development of new technologies, adoption of new sources of renewable energy, including hydrogen. When I talk about that, about the green hydrogen, the new sources of energy. And reduce the dependence on the fossil fuel. So one, the international funding must come in to the developing world. Number two, all our initiatives, I must admit, that cannot be met through the international funding. We must do the collaboration with the developed world. We must make consortiums. We must identify projects. We must identify areas of research and development, like India and France has done, India and UK has done, India and US done, India and Germany has done. So we all must come together, identify projects, and identify the areas of R&D, and then move ahead. So first, international source of funding, the developed world must provide to the developing world. Second, the developing world should not shy away and must develop the collaboration with the developed world for funding of their projects and initiatives. And the third, as a nation, we must provide the fiscal and the non-fiscal incentives. So all the three measures will have to be done. We have to tap the international resources. We have to have the right collaborations. And the third, we must provide our local fiscal incentives to develop this hydrogen economy. One thing I agree with Dr. Vibha, and at the same time, I would not agree with her. Yes, we need manpower. We need research and development. We need people who can manage the hydrogen economy. And also not only the scientists and technocrats, but also the people at the lower level through the skill development programs. But for that, we need not spend immediately on the center of excellence. We have got so many IITs, we have got institution of higher education. We must identify few of them and then make them into the centers of excellence. We should not create buildings, etc. We should invest in the upgradation of skills, bringing the new technologies, trying on the new projects, trying on the new initiatives, trying to bring down the cost of the electrolyzer, trying on the new non-metals metals, which can be used there. So we must do this. So in short, international funding, our collaborative initiatives, our local fiscal and non-fiscal initiatives, and yes, we must develop our present human resources institutions into centers of excellence, and we must also have the scientists, technocrats, and the people of the required skills to, in a phased manner, to tackle the growing hydrogen economy per se.
Thank you. Jyothilal, a quick comment, how state of Kerala is managing the finances to fund these projects?
Yeah, in fact, we are at present, we are giving a VGF of 1 crore. I got sanctioned from finance. Per month, 1 crore is my VGF, which is allowed. So anyway, I am managing within that. I'm sure I should be able to bring it down. So one or two, couple of suggestions. One is we announced a DFI last budget. So probably these are all projects which are long-term, which needs long-term funding, which commercial banks may not be able to meet. I think DFI is one. In fact, we have approached KFW, etc., international funding agencies. So I think that is one thing. Second is, I think green bonds, just like REC, rural electrification, NABARD bonds, etc. I think people, capital gains, if we give exemption, I think people will put their money. So I think that is another source which I think, I hope I'm audible. Yeah. Then as Madam has mentioned about Center of Excellence, in fact, we have requested that because shipping, probably the green shipping, we had the recent seminar, we found that already there are agencies, as Sarah has mentioned, there are QSAT is there, IIT is there, IIT Palghat is there, then Cochin Shipyard is there, our colleges or engineering colleges are there. So I think we can make a center of excellence in Kochi. In fact, we have requested Madam that we should consider it seriously, because already they have demonstrated, they have made a water metro. Now they are going for fuel cell buses as well as fuel cell boats. And the ports can become the export hubs for the hydrogen. In fact, there are enough institutions with probably with a zero latency network with 5G is offering, we can have a virtual center of excellence. All need not even come. So I think it is center of excellence is a good idea. Probably we request that ma'am take it up seriously and consider Kochi as a hub with maybe integrating all other institutions which are already involved. Then one or two points which I would like to add, which I think Mr. Venugopal has already mentioned. So, for example, carbon steel with the vacuum. So that is required for storing hydrogen, liquid hydrogen. If you say in a truck 4,000 kg, that means 450 kg is a tube trailer which can carry. This can carry almost 40. That means 9 times 450 kg into 9 times 4,000 kg you can carry once you go for a liquid hydrogen, and the pressure is 1 to 2 bar. So I think the issue of storing at a high pressure also doesn't come. So my request is that I think once you allow that the standard, so that then long haul and buses can go for liquid hydrogen with a cryogenic tanker with vacuum in between, with the car using carbon steel. I think that is one requirement. Second is maybe coming to ARAI homologation approval. In fact, Elo Mobility Germany has approached us. They are willing to, right from beginning, they are willing to assemble the bus here in Kochi for Kochi, and they are willing to give probably 2 buses to us. But we need, they were asking how much is the time for homologation. Generally, I think 6 months. It may take. I think if that homologation, I think help can be given, more companies will be willing to come and invest in India. Third point is that up to 350 bar you have allowed, PESO has allowed. Probably we should allow up to 700 bar. I saw in Toyota is using 700 bar even in their Nagoya factory. So for the bus as well as the car, so that you get the full range. Then standards for the liquid hydrogen needs to be notified. Then for export as well as whether shipment or for mobility sector, I think liquid hydrogen is very important. So cryogenic tankers for storage of liquid hydrogen is to be notified. Then one important point which I think Anand Kumar sir has mentioned, renewables, we assessed something around 8 to 9 gigawatt we'll be able to generate by putting floating solar. This is apart from the offshore wind farms which can be there. Then tidal is another source of energy. So there one requirement, sir. In fact, we have got almost 15 reservoirs in Kerala, which is in the reserve forest area. Why not be, anyway, if it is, the water is not used for drinking, why not give blanket permission to deploy floating solar? So that it really doesn't affect, instead of it will reduce evaporation loss, at the same time we can generate huge, so the just like railway doesn't need EIA approval, just like that, I think MOEF clearance we have already taken up with MNRE. So I think this is a immediate thing, sir, which can change the way, 9 gigawatt, and we will be able to generate enough energy to run all our buses and trucks using, and water is also available. In situ, they can generate hydrogen there itself in the reservoir area. So that is one suggestion, sir. Then rooftop solar, the power purchase, generally most of the net metering, most of the power utilities have given, but no one, at least in our state, they have not fixed a rate for buying power. So then more people will go for rooftop and they will sell power to the power utility, which can be given to generate maybe green hydrogen somewhere else. So I think that is another point. Then methanol is another option. Methanol blending up to 20% is allowed. M100 engines, I think we need to allow M100 engines to be made. Then HICE is another big opportunity with the retrofitting. And I think ARAI director has already mentioned. I think hydrogen ICE engines have already been developed. So I think the early approval and retrofitting, that is the cheapest solution for I think all the truck and bus people to switch over to hydrogen. So that then fuel stations, they're a very good thing that, in Gujarat, you are permitted within the refinery, because Cochin refinery, we generate 3 lakh cubic meters per hour is the hydrogen generation by the Air Products USA. But within the refinery, we are not able to set up a fuel station. So I think this is a good model. If Gujarat has done, I think you should allow in all other places. This is a very good model which we can emulate. Then rail is another sector which we are already. UK is running. I think Germany is running trains. So I think Alstom has already made coaches, which can run on hydrogen. I think that is another area which we should look at. Then sustainable aviation fuel, as I said, Indians have invested in Germany and other in SAF. So why not we develop smaller aircrafts which can use as SAF. And all our houseboats, around more than 600 houseboats are there. And fishermen's boats are also using, instead of kerosene, which is polluting, so we can replace it with the SAF. These are the 3-4 suggestions I have got on the legal side. Thank you.
Suggestions. I'm now.
Cheema ji, I just want to make one point, and that is, I'm not saying a standalone COE. It is that there are different pearls of wisdom and different research areas spread across the country. So there should be a platform where they all interact and they understand each other's difficulty and where to take from one step to the other. And I like to draw a parallel center of excellence, which has been multi-institutional center of excellence, which has been set up by Department of Biotechnology in the area of biofuels. So we should just take that as an example. So I just thought I should say, one is not asking for a building, one is asking for a network.
Sure. I'm going to turn to Dr. Mathai. I have two questions. I'm also aware that we are now entering the last 10-15 minutes of our discussion. Could you please comment on the feasibility of hydrogen as a car fuel on a large scale? When do you expect to see that, and what it is to be done from a regulatory perspective? That's the first part of my question. The second question is, given the present scenario, will the infrastructure be built in time and be sufficient to support hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicles? Those are two questions that I have. Sir, over to you.
Yeah, before I just answer that, I think I will just address Mr. Jyothilal sir's lot of requirements. I can see a person who is in action has a lot of needs, and it really is a joy to see some states focused on that. The homologation aspect, particularly whenever a new vehicle or a new type is coming into place, that journey can be made much simpler, because if they have a plan in place, just inform us so that we, along with them, start the journey together, and we'll correct them if there are some safety aspects or some needs to be there. The AIS 157 is in place, whatever the regulatory needs are required. So we will just ensure that the components and all are used are of the right type, so that once the proto is ready or the vehicle is ready, within a month we can clear it. So you don't have the delay of such a big thing happening. Another thing you mentioned about was the liquid hydrogen. Yes, we have to write to BIS for that, for the specs to start preparing for it. I think that is another area we need to look into, because that is, we will see how it can be facilitated in a better way. Now coming to the queries. Hydrogen implementation, particularly, my very clear thought is that we are a group of people who are highly cost conscious and highly it is what is driving us today. If you see the surge in EVs, it is not because there is a group that have to make that statement. They make that statement, yes, we are addressing the ambient air quality or the energy security part. But in large, if it has to grow, it has to really address the total cost of ownership. We need to make that statement very clear, and we have to understand that. So the cost of the fuel is very critical, how it is produced. And as I see, when bigger players come into play, when they enter into this fray, we will see the cost coming down significantly, and that will be affordable. The infrastructure need is highly capital intensive. It's not like the EV infrastructure that has been needed. So to develop that ecosystem, not only we don't want to again import the electrolyzers or the needed things and put it into place. Again, we will not be serving the purpose that is thought of. So that requires a more planned policy making by the government, as government has given some ideas in the PLI scheme for the application side. But on the generation side also, if some incentivization can come in, it will play a big role into trying to put into place the needed infrastructure. Coming to see when we are going to have these vehicles in a larger numbers, notice sort of a thing. I have a very optimistic view, because I believe that by 2030, we should see a sizable thing, and at least in certain states. Not in a pan-India basis, but certain states, because the states can make their own policy which can hasten this implementation. And we can see that happening in some of the states that are really taking the lead. And once government puts a measure on that in their progress reports or something like that, we can see others catching up in a much faster way. The safety aspects, the hydrogen, I believe every fuel has got its problems. But if handled well, as PESO was mentioning, if we handle well, if we take care of it, it is very easily manageable, because we have been working with hydrogen way back from 2005, 6 and all. As in IOC, we were running the HCNG buses, hydrogen was produced, filled. Even the ICE buses with hydrogen, we have run few trials when I was over there in my previous assignment. So it is not a problem. We have not seen any hazards happening as of now. But we need to be very careful. And I know people will take it seriously once things are put into place.
Thank you. I'm going to come back to Dr. Venugopal. And this is the last round, and I'll request everyone to make very brief comment, whatever is your closing comment on this topic. May I ask Dr. Venugopal, what, according to you, is required to strengthen the regulatory framework from where we are now?
The development of the hydrogen regulatory framework in India will be a complex process involving many different industry stakeholders and international counterparts, which is coming up now. It is promising. Therefore, I think that each of the state governments, especially Kerala, appears to be collaborating with one another, liaising with the vast range of industry stakeholders, especially marine, to develop a system there. Similarly, uniform laws can be generated in discussion with PESO, Transport Department, Environmental Pollution Control Board, these three main agencies. And this will be an interesting space to watch within the coming years. The promotion of hydrogen is expected to become an important part of achieving a carbon neutral society. In order to promote the development of various infrastructure necessary as preconditions to such a change, clarification, rationalization of the relevant laws and regulations will be important, in addition to the technological innovations. And with regard to SABS 500 kg pressure, he was asking about the pressure wherein the inlet pressure from hydrogen storage, it will be, we have given 550 bar for the IOC refinery at Vadodara. So it will not be a problem coming with the high pressure dispensing pumps also. But in India, it is not available. It will be, you have to import from US. That is the only hiccup in that one. And we assure you that PESO will be giving for the, in the coming days, it will be giving for the composite cylinders for hydrogen storage. So that will be a great development in the field of automotive industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Venugopal. Mr. Anand Kumar, your closing comments? Kindly unmute.
Okay. When you're looking into the future and looking forward to having big contribution through green hydrogen in the Indian economy and to reduce the carbon footprint, we must look it in a very comprehensive manner. No piecemeal approach would do. And when we are talking about the comprehensive manner, we must have, I'm not saying that there will be one solution to all problems. No. Each sector would require different legislation, different solutions. So you must see that what the demand of each sector is, how we are going to meet those requirements, how we are going to phase introduction of technologies, how we are going to phase implementation of project, how we are going to finance those projects, whether internationally through collaborative effort or through our internal resources, and what would be the end result, what would be the impact on the India's energy scenario. I would say that we must start where we have a bigger impact, where we have larger saving on the fossil fuel, and then gradually move on. So we must have a blueprint ready for the introduction of hydrogen for the total hydrogen economy. And again, I'm saying no piecemeal approach would do.
Thank you. Dhawan? In the meantime, could I request Mr. Jyothilal to make his final comments?
Yeah, in fact, I fully agree with Anand Kumar, sir. It is A to Z, right from probably the electrolyzer, solar, the renewable energy generation, production, then dispensing, fuel cell, then you have got dispensers, because there are short supply of dispensers in the country. We are finding it difficult. So I think the entire value chain we need to address. Probably in a nutshell, we have made a roadmap for an ecosystem, new energy ecosystem. Probably I think these are incentives in the 5 sectors. We are divided. One is to promote the investment. I am not getting into details. One is, then second is incentive for employment generation, and then promote industrial activity, and then incentive for the utilities, then financing part incentive, and then the tax and duty incentives, etc., GST and stamp duty exemption, etc. These are the 6 pillars which I think which might be on the fiscal side, which we should do, apart from the policy side and maybe non-fiscal. This in a nutshell is which will make a new energy ecosystem in the country, and probably the carbon to hydrogen is to happen, and that's a way I think energy, maybe it is a moving from independence to independence. I think that is possible. I'm sure the country is going in the right direction.
Thank you, Mr. Jyothilal. Dr. Dhawan?
Yeah, in fact, everything is said and very rightly summed up by Dr. Kumar and Jyothilal. The thing is, it is something which we can't miss as a country. The government must work towards, and they had already announced hydrogen mission. So now is the time that, as rightly mentioned, we need to draw a blueprint and start working in that direction, because otherwise it will be too expensive to not to take action on hydrogen in a big way. That's what I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dhawan. Mr. Mathai?
Yeah, I have just 2 points basically to make. One is we need a little focused efforts on channelizing what is happening now today, because multiple people are doing, some of them are very repetitive. They are not coming together or partnering in the way to take out the best benefits. And this is an important aspect that I believe needs to do that. A better planning or a better oversight needs to be done, where we put our efforts to cutting edge research and trying to bring out solutions. Second is we need to have more demonstration projects. That is one of the key things I believe somehow we have to carry out. That we have been seeing a lot of queries from small players wanting to retrofit or do some fuel cell activity so that the range extension starts taking place. And we are seeing that movement happening. We are also partnering in that way, in a big way, with some of the small players, starting even from the agriculture sector, even to the three-wheelers, which are, we never thought that they would be interested for fuel cell applicants sort of a thing. But so we are very, very ready to partner in that, and we would like to do that. And we would encourage each one of us to come together and provide solutions that are implementable.
Thank you very much. Before I hand over to Mr. Kocher, Dr. Dhawan, Mr. Kumar, Mr. Jyothilal, Mr. Mathai, Dr. Venugopal, it's been an absolute pleasure interacting with all of you this evening. I can tell you that there is a huge amount of litigation and disputes that are happening in the climate space in other jurisdictions. We will have to sort of equip ourselves also in India with a proper statute or a legislation so that these kind of issues don't arise in this sunrise sector. Thank you very much. A pleasure speaking to all of you. And over to Mr. Kocher. Samir?
Thank you all. It was indeed a pleasure. Very engrossing conversation. And I hope Jay is going to help us put together a set of recommendations that we can carry forward. Thank you very much for being with us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.